We interrupt the regularly scheduled mass programming feeds. Watchmen bring this announcement to the earth. A famine of the word of YaHuWaH is found on the earth. Plagues are poured out in judgment. Important words of the Creator YaHuWaH have been dismissed. Without the word, people are not living abundantly. My people perish for lack of knowledge. There is a city whose builder is YaHuWaH Aloha. There is healing for the nations. A light unto the Gentiles, restore all truth. Join us as we share from the word of YaHuWaH.
And I have my research assistant with me today.
Morning all.
You got to put your face on camera. Let's get his footy hat on. Get your footy hat on.
All my hair's hard.
Oh dear. Okay, share screen. Oh, you guys will come over and sit next to me. I'm going to interview this lovely man. Talk us through what happened. What happened with this picture, with your thoughts?
Well, the first time I saw this picture, it was sometime last year. I can't remember exactly when it was. But I saw this picture and started doing backflips. And I came up with a thing that was, well, how can there be a whale in there? When the heavens opened, or the earth opened, to me, it was fresh water. And we all know that whales swim in the ocean. Yes, they do breathe, but what about all the other fishes? And I went, well, how could the sea have been salt?
So we got to this point where we're asking a question, why is the sea salty?
Yeah.
Is everyone following with the logic there? So just formulating that question a little bit more, we got to how can you have a whale in the picture when the heavens opened, it rained and the earth opened up and the fountains of the deep poured forth fresh water. But was the flood fresh water?
Yeah.
Massive reduce in salinity levels. There should have been death, a lot of death of fish. It was told to be by somebody local here that thought about the process, a biblical scholar, and they said, look, maybe it was a miraculous thing. And this biblical scholar said to me this week, I think salt water was created at creation. Salt water has a different weight to fresh water, so perhaps was in layers, which Elohim would have allowed to come together again in seas. Lakes are mostly freshwater. Different fish would have stayed in their relevant compatible water type, so did not die. If we think about it, fish will die in water that is turbulent and full of silt and debris. A miracle looks to have happened in keeping the relevant fish types separate and unaffected by the upheaval of the flood. Also, there are fossils of certain types of prehistoric fish, so they obviously got caught up in the sediment upheaval and were buried. There are also in the sediment fish all over the world. So I thought that was interesting. I decided to try and prove that out in a Bible code. It's interesting, the collaboration I got. The revelation process of what it takes to put a Bible code together.
Yeah, that was good.
He was just like, no, that's not in there. No.
Especially one word.
It was my expertise comes in. I put together the Bible code. Martin was my research assistant, but it was his idea, so that's why he's here. So looking at the words, the salt and sea, and where they appear in Scripture first, and where they appear together, and it was very interesting. And I ended up coming up with Joshua 15:2, although there is an earlier one, and we'll see that a bit later. And the access term that I've got, it's actually translated as the salt sea. So there's a few different things. First bears out in Genesis 14:3, first occurrence. So here's the table. So Yom HaMelech. Here's our access term going up the page, Yom HaMelech. And we have the word bara here from Genesis 1:1, Bereshit 1:1. Immediately I'm like, hey, Dale, there's our answer. But we'd already found all these other things.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, I need to answer the question. I still haven't answered the question. We ended up in Noah here, in the story of Noah, Genesis chapter 6. And Genesis 3 to 9, I think, altogether in the table. 3 to 9, yeah. Interestingly enough, in plain text, in the very bottom left of the table, I've got a signature, the fish of the sea from Genesis 9:2. And I thought, oh, that's just cool. Yeah, so we found it was made at creation. That should say the salt sea. Sorry, never mind. And then we also found Bereshit crossing over here as well. The tower's just off the page a little bit there, but it is there. I'll show you the live table shortly. And to home, the deep from Genesis 1:2, which is what it would have been at the beginning. So that was interesting that they all came together and an arrow pointing down. And did they come down from the firmament to start with? Got separated, didn't it? And it was interesting too that the term Hamayim, the waters, from Genesis 1:2, was the word in the plain text of the sharing the yod, the working hand at the bottom of the access term. And that is found there in Genesis 8:3, running across here. And the waters receded steadily from the earth, and the end of the 150 days, the waters diminished. We're going from creation to Noah's flood and back and forth. So it was interesting, the picture. Here was very interesting. I couldn't help but notice that we had Nephilim here and the word Vayamyam. Now, it actually is translated as in those days. So with the bet in the front and with the next word is those. So in days is yum, which is the same as the seas. There's the first occurrence, Genesis 1:10 for the seas. In those days, but it's actually the seas. It was an interesting anomaly, I thought, anyway. And then underneath that, I found a covenant marker with Adam. So covenant mankind it is actually. And I saw the weakness of man was great in the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only ever continually. And YaHuWaH was sorry that he had made man on the earth. There's man, covenant man, and he was grieved in his heart. And YaHuWah's solution, verse 7, and YaHuWaH said, I am going to wipe off man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping creatures and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. It was a moment of jaw-dropping, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we have here, and see, I myself am bringing floodwaters on the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under the heavens, all that is on the earth. Look, there's a bet there. Can you see the bet? All that is on the earth is to die. And then we have Genesis 7, verse 19 here with the Mem Aleph. And the waters were exceedingly mighty on the earth, and all the high mountains under the heavens were covered. So the sea creature didn't fall.
Right, and they weren't under judgment.
What do you think about that? Did you realise that?
Very interesting.
Look at this, Genesis 7. And YaHuWaH said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Of all the clean beasts, take with you 7 pairs, a male and his female, and of the beasts that are unclean, 2, a male and his female. And of birds of the heavens, 7 pairs, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of all the earth. For after 7 more days I am sending rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and shall wipe from the face of the earth all that stand that I created. And Noah did according to all that YaHuWaH commanded him.
That's the thing that really stood out, especially to me. It was all that stand that I created.
Yeah, that's
That
very
stand.
That just we went, whoa, hang on a minute. Hang on, is that actually written there? It is. Yeah, it was just that just blew me away.
And that's the ISR translation. So we found all that stand in the plain text is here and here, on the right and on the left, either side of the Salt Sea, the access term. Thinking about terms to put in, I found Joshua 15:2, and it also had the term Salt Sea in there, and it had the bay, which is here, a parallel, which we know that means a lot. We also had the deep here, which is parallel, which is Metsula, from Tsula, page 4668, to sink, or an abyss. So that's here, Metsula, the deep, crossing all that stand. So all that stand were consigned to the deep. We found the term for salinity as well, so that's wrapping around in the light blue. And that was just something I found on Google Translate Israel. It's not a term that I could find in scriptures at all. Saltwater brine is over here. Now, we were having a look. Mister over here starts saying, what's that word? I've gone, what? I handed him a highlighter, and I've got this terrible habit of scribbling on the screen with a highlighter if I'm trying to mark things and compare them with where something else is. And he's pointing at us and look here, Dale, just mark the screen and show me what you're looking at. And it was these 4 letters here we worked out. And phonetically, put those in Google Translate Israel and you get Satan. Now, we know that Satan is normally spelt with a tet. So we put that in too. Hasatan is here. It's normally spelt with a tet. But this one is also to urinate. And it reminded me of how everything's been spoiled by man. But that stood out to him. another interesting moment that we had putting this together. Something else I saw around the same area and I lost it now was Shabbat. So I put Shabbat in, trying to locate it again, and we ended up with the Shabbat here. And we know that the fall of everything happened because man wasn't doing what YaHuWaH had commanded. They'd forgotten everything about what they needed to do. Whether they had the Shabbat then or not, depends on the research you look at. Now, we found Leviathan. Leviathan is whale. We've got Leviathan going up here. Now, I've got two spellings. YaHuWaH, that's the biblical one. And then there's an alternate spelling, YaHuWaH there and two Wahs in this one. So scriptures will give you YaHuWaH, this spelling, and Google Translate Israel gives this one as well with two Wahs, and they're both there. So I thought that was interesting. And then fishes, but I wrote fishes because it's plural. It's easier for me to think of the word fishes as a plural rather than just fish. So fishing is dug in, was here going across. And of course, I had to go look for this number, and that was there with Leviathan, fishing, and salinity sort of all crossing each other. So the report, I did find in further sort of studies, I found extra things, and I'll go to the live table in a minute. You can have a look where I found those things as well. I found a bit of research on how long it took for everything to be destroyed, and the cycle was 1656 years, and by scriptures. So can you understand what's happening here? Creation, and then you've got fatherhood. So I suppose we have to add, 6 days? But anyway, that's years. Roughly 1656 years that it took from creation to the flood. Another little bit of research that I did was just having a look at the terms and some other scriptures and the idea of salt. And if you haven't heard about the salt covenant, that's another interesting one. But in scripture, there's the Sea of Salt, there's the Valley of Salt. But in the New Testament, there was a couple of interesting scriptures I found in the Sephirah. And one was Yaakov or James 3:2. Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either of vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. So they don't mix. So something miraculous happened there. And in Marcus or Mark 9:49-50, you've got, for everyone shall be salted with fire, and every sacrifice shall be salted with salt. That talks about the salt covenant. And salt is tov, but if the salt has saltiness, how will you season it? How will you season it? And it says, have salt in yourselves and have peace with one another. So the idea of we need salt for life. And I'd be interested to get the medical opinion, if you're there, Terry, about electrolytes or what does salt do to our bodies that we need it. And that's the end.
That's great. Can you go back to that timeline where you started with Genesis and you went through Genesis to get to the date of the flood? That's a beautiful, I love that. Such a beautiful presentation.
If you're enjoying this video, click like, subscribe, click the bell, and please share this video. Shalom. Let's get back to the video.
Where is it in scripture or is it extra biblical where it says the Dead Sea will be awakened and fish will be in there again? You'll fish from the Dead Sea. Do y'all remember that? Do you remember reading that anywhere, that the Dead Sea is going to come back to life once again?
No.
I've seen that somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, the Dead Sea. Of course, nothing lives in that much salt. If you drink it, it's absolutely deadly right now. But I think there's a fine line in between salinity, the saline, the sodium in your blood. And you can't have too much or you can't have too little. It has to be just right. It has to do with osmosis, the ability for stuff to cross in and out of the cell wall.
Ezekiel 47.
The sea became fresh, yeah. Well, in that area where the Dead Sea is, it's got these big cliffs all around it. But you can tell, it's like when you look at that, some of the documentaries on Egypt and the Sphinx and how it's been softened, it's been smoothed by water. You can tell that absolutely water used to gush in that area because, Lot chose that area. It must have been just absolutely gorgeous because the rocks are smooth around it so much that the water had to flow. And so the erosion smoothed out the rock. So if that's going to be awakened again, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful place. once again, it must have been before, or Lot would have never chosen that land.
Oh, so here's the life table. Here's the tower over on the end of Bereshit beginnings. Crossing over the Lamed, the Exodus there. Interestingly, too, I found YaHuWaH palindrome crossing over the main Exodus term and YaHuWaH, pretty much crossing hay. This hay is where the YaHuWaH palindrome's going over here, right? And we've got the word Elohim here. So we've got YaHuWaH sharing the mem in the word Elohim. I thought that was awesome. And somebody was really pleased that his name was in there twice. It's wrapping around. And some of the points of interest. Now, the coal, all that stand, Genesis 7:4. But the Lamed, here, was sharing with the deep. Yes, I did speak about that. It's coal, cocoon. And we know that Lamed is the teaching. And that all that stands on the earth was consigned to the deep because they chose their own teaching.
Bonnie, I saw the number 153. Did you talk about that?
I did. There's something about how many fish.
Right.
But we have Genesis 4:14 there. Behold, you have driven me out this day from the face of the land, and from your face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer in the earth, and it shall come to pass that whoever find me will slay me. That's the curse of Cain, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was interesting. And again, it's only 3 letters. Any other questions?
Yeah, Bonnie, can you go back to the table that you presented? So the fish of the sea at the bottom left corner, I thought it was interesting that the short version of YaHuWaH's name is in the middle of that.
Yeah.
So it's like YaHuWaH bringing the fish to the sea. That's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
Of course he did.
That's cool.
It's like you can't have fish in the sea existing without YaHuWaH making that happen.
Yeah.
And then there was also all that stand. First of all, that word kum, of course, is the word that Yahushua and Kepha Peter used to raise someone from the dead. The kum is that word to rise up. That's also, we found that in Numbers 10, verses 35 and 36, where the letter nun is actually inverted in the Hebrew scriptures. It kind of makes it look like what's going on here. The letter's kind of upside down and backwards. So that word kum is really important. So here we have the aleph and the ta, which are the first and the last letters, and we have the kaf and the lamed right in the middle of the aleph beit. So I thought that was really cool in that phrase, all that stand has an aleph and a ta and a kaf and a lamed right in the middle of the aleph beit, and then yakum.
Yeah, it was just like a revelation, wasn't it?
It was incredible.
This is why we do this, for,
Yes.
for the moments like that. And now you understand, don't you?
Yes, I did.
And also there, Bonnie, besides the aleph ta kaf lamed, there's also a yod mem, which are the next 2 letters in the middle. And of course,
Oh.
every letter there of YaHuWaH's name is also inside there.
Yod, hey, wah, hey. Yep,
That's really cool.
correct. Wow. Yeah,
That's
see,
an awesome phrase.
keeps giving. It's cool. Hayakum.
Well, fish must be a really important thing, you know? I mean,
Mm.
fish, the sign of the fish, Pisces. It seems like for the early believers, a fish was like a mark. It seems like that was a mark.
Feeding of the fish, all of it. Yeah.
Multiplying the fish. I'll make you fishers of men. you
I was
know.
just about to say that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important one.
That's part of the 7-day prophecy, creation prophecy. Make them fishers of men, just as he populated the waters by the fish and by the birds of the air.
So just change this to the correct wording. That's all right. So I've got the right graphic there now.
What did you have there before, Bonnie?
The sea of salt. Yeah, I thought it could have gone either way, but I was told to spell it out differently in Hebrew if I wanted to do that.
And Bonnie, I feel like you've probably put a little thought into this. I was texting you earlier about, well, I know what I've heard that salt does physiologically in the body, that it pulls water out of cells. Is that right, Terry?
Pulling water out of the cells, it would be. It's a dehydrator, you know, it pulls what it's a preservative. Salt is a preservative. We know that. So Yeah, it's a osmotic. It crosses the barrier.
Yeah. And then I know it's involved in the heartbeat. You have to have salt for the heart to beat. It's salt and potassium, right? That's like a chemical exchange that happens to make the heart beat. Bonnie, did you do any thinking on what spiritually it means?
Spiritually, we are the light of the world and the salt of the earth. We studied that in Matthew, didn't we?
Yeah.
We know that salt seasons, it seasons things.
Is there someone who can briefly describe the salt covenant? I've heard that before, but I don't know what that is.
Covenant of salt, Leviticus 2, verse 13. And season with salt every offering of your grain offering, and do not allow the salt of the covenant of your Elohim to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you bring salt. 2 Chronicles 13, verse 5. Do you not know that YaHuWaH Elohim of Yasharel has given the reign over Yasharel to David forever, to him and his sons, by a covenant of salt? A salt covenant is an indissoluble covenant, sure, stable, incorruptible. A durable and perpetual covenant, perpetuity, a perpetual ordinance, an inviolable contract. Salt preserves things, keeps from corruption. Salt is an emblem of friendship, hospitality, inviolability, and permanence of that which is incorruptible. The salt covenant is ratified on the part of the priest by salt. They are to make certain it is never missing from any meal offering. A binding alliance is made by eating bread and salt together. The salt covenant was a covenant given to the priest on condition of their service and care of the worship of YaHuWaH. It is an eternal claim of the priest. The priests were to be wholly devoted to their ministry unto YaHuWaH. The priests are to be examples by living by belief, not only in YaHuWaH's providence, but in his ordinances. Salt is a pledge of fidelity and a binding covenant of friendship with YaHuWaH. A covenant of salt is forever before YaHuWaH unto you, and your seed with you, an incorruptible, inviolable, durable covenant, which should last forever, even until the Besorah dispensation, or the New Testament era, or the world to come should take place, and it would remain ever before YaHuWaH in his sight, who would take care it should never be made void, but stand fast with Aaron and his posterity as long as his priesthood endured. A covenant of salt is a covenant which cannot be broken.
Yeah, and YaHuWaH said, didn't he, that you are the salt of the earth, and if the salt has lost its flavor.
What does losing its flavor look like?
So you can still have salt, but it doesn't taste of anything.
It's just a crystal. Wonder why Lot's wife turned to salt. I wonder what the significance of that is. She looked behind and she turned to salt.
Oh, that's right. She turned
Yeah,
to the
that's a
pillar
good
of
one.
salt.
It was
Yeah.
a picture of her unbelief. I just wanted to go to the root word for salt, just to show you the next sort of step. So here's the primitive root: salt, season, temper together, vanish away. That's very interesting.
Wow, that is such an interesting definition.
Yeah, so we like our primitive roots because that's where the real meaning comes from. To disappear as dust.
You rub to pieces or pulverize. Wow, that's just giving me such a different, deep thought on that. To rub to pieces or pulverize. Does our ministry just kind of wear away or break down what is resistant to YaHuWaH? I wonder.
Yeah, it's a lot of deep thinking. And we did do a study in Matthew.
Yeah.
We did do a study in Matthew a few months back about the salt and the light, and we went into the salt covenant. We went into all that. So it'd be worthwhile linking.
It also sounds very much like Malachi.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yes, it does. It very much does. They have very, very close sounds in the Hebrew. They would have a relationship in meaning because they both have a mem lamed there and they sound the same.
Well, there's that saying, worth its weight in salt. Salt used to be a very valuable trading. Yeah, like the Dead Sea salt, the salt from there, and then that mud stuff, the mortar goo that came from the Dead Sea. So salt was valuable.
Yeah. There's a lady here in Hawaii that told me about how to help I've got a rooster with a hurt foot. And she told me to soak his foot in a 5-gallon bucket, take a 5-gallon bucket that I could put the rooster down into, soak it in 2 cups of water and a half a cup of salt. So basically the inverted formula, and soak his foot in that every other day. She said it will kill the infection. I think that's important to know. It would draw it out.
Yeah, I mean, you think of Epsom salt bath, that draws soreness out.
Yeah, and that's magnesium, right? Or is it a magnesium salt? I'm not sure.
Like magnesium salt, like Epsom salt. Well, that's magnesium, but it has a salt in it, magnesium salt,
yeah.
sodium.
Magnesium sulfate can also draw out the calcium from your body that food and medication, when you've got a frozen shoulder or too much calcium in your body, magnesium is the only thing that can draw that out. Our bodies cannot maintain their magnesium or salt balance, the electrolyte. We need to actually put them in daily.
Yeah, Tessa, I've read that is that we have to intake the magnesium from our food, right? Our body doesn't metabolize magnesium. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful table, Bonnie. Wonderful, wonderful table.
So wonderful. Such an amazing presentation, Bonnie.
Yeah. So what was your takeaway from that, Bonnie? If you had to summarize it in a paragraph, what you and Martin, what's your takeaway from that?
It's okay that the whale was in the picture of the flood.
I reckon it's great that Martin picked that up. Like, we just gloss over a lot of it.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And that's because I've been listening to you guys for a long time now, and there's just some things that I pick up. I go, well, hang on a minute. What about this? And you go, yeah, all right, we'll have a look at that. And that's what we do. We just occasionally go bang, we start having a look at stuff. This one has been on my mind for quite a while, but now I know the sea was already salt, and the salt water and fresh water was separated. The fresh fish was still swimming in the fresh water during the time of the flood. So that's fine by me now. I'm happy with that.
The logic bore out, didn't it, in the end? And it was like, yeah, of course it does. It's his word, and it's there for us to explore. And we know we're not to look for future things in the codes, but hey, this is ancient history, and what are we being taught now, and does that sort of line up with what do we know, what do we think we know, and when we have questions, how do we get them answered? And the Biblecodes is a great way to get a question answered. That's basically what we did, wasn't it?
Yep.
Here's the question. Can we answer it?
Well, it's got to be very important because the blood is salty. Our sweat is salty. So salt is critical for life.
You'll be told to take all the salt out of your diet. We have low salt this, low salt that. I have family members with thyroid issues, and it's like, no, I'm not having salt. And it's like, we need it.
Yeah, you can usually go the opposite. If they tell you just take salt out, that probably means you need a ton of it.
Yeah. I used to take salt tablets a long time ago because I used to suffer a lot from leg cramps, and salt tablets were absolutely brilliant. I'd have one probably once a month, and then it ended up that I got enough salt back in my body, and I never had to take them again.
Hallelujah.
I wonder, do they still sell? I know they sell salt licks for cattle and things, but do they still sell salt tablets?
Of course they do. Yeah,
I haven't heard of such a thing.
That's because you've never had to use them.
No. There you go,
Martin. You're gonna be a code searcher yet.
That was awesome. That was wonderful.
May this video enrich your love in and understanding of our Abba YaHuWaH and His Word. Much has been hidden. Together let's seek the restoration of all truth. A Light Unto the Gentiles channel invites you to join the Hebrew Restoration and Code Searching team. Please email us at alightuntothe@gmail.com to let us know of your interest. Looking for fellowship? We invite you to join our Facebook group, Code Searching Hebrews. Love, truth, and revelation are vital in these last days. The Hebrew Restoration and Code Searching Ministries, through A Light Unto the Gentiles, serves YaHuWaH and the sheep from our Father's pasture. Please prayerfully consider a monthly donation to Restoration Farms Incorporated. Links are provided for you below in the description.